Welcome back to Speed Sport Magazine. In the era of dirt track racing, when A.J. Foyt made a name for himself, racers had to be fast, tough, and most certainly brave. We talked about courage was important. Was intimidation or arrogance, confidence, were they maybe even more important than just flat having courage?
I would say you had to have a lot of confidence in yourself and your crew chief, because your crew chief, you didn't have no 4 or 5 guys. I mean, you had them race day on the pits, but actually the biggest thing back then was your chief mechanic and the driver. They had to be real close, because that's how you won races back then. You didn't have a computer telling you, you need to do this, you need to do that, and all that. So you just had to have confidence in your chief mechanic and yourself.
Your biggest strength was your physical strength to muscle the car around, or was it your smarts behind the wheel and the strategy that you would incorporate?
I used to work out quite a bit. You know, didn't have all the fancy gyms like you got today with the machines. I made a steering wheel on a shock absorber with a little chair and sit there and turned it. You didn't have power steering or nothing like that. And fortunate enough, all through the years, I never had to have a relief or fell out of the seat.
And that's what helped make you so strong in a place like Langhorne then?
Yeah, I would say so.
Langhorne was such a nasty place, and it scared a lot of people. But you seemed to thrive there.
Well, it was a great racetrack. It's the kind of racetrack I like, but you had to have the car, and you also had to have the chief mechanic, and then yeah, I guess you had to be pretty brave back then.
Yeah, you're kind of being a little humble on that part, aren't you?
I don't know. I had some people come up to me, and he said, "You're A.J. Foyt, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I just want you to know, I followed you at Terre Haute. I won to Anderson, Indiana, when you won there at the little quarter mile." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I followed you on the East Coast when you won the sprint car championship." And he said, "I want to tell you one thing about your life." I said, "Fine." He said, "You was probably the bravest race driver that I've ever known in my life." I said, "Well, I don't think I was no braver." No, he said, "No, I watched you do things that was impossible and you was never in trouble." Well, I said, "Well, thank you."
That word brave that he used, they could have said the fastest, could have said the strongest, could have said a lot of different things. But to be told you're the bravest of all the men that came through an era, that was quite possibly the most dangerous. Is that maybe the best compliment you could be given?
I would say it was probably the top one you could be given. And I look back at some of the old films I look at, and I scared the hell out of myself on some of the crap I did, and still made it. You know, I'll never forget Sacramento. Roger Ward and I, first year won the championship. And Roger Ward was a great race driver. I really respected him a lot. He's up against the cushion, showed me go between him and the wall. I'll never forget that film. I said, "Oh no, you crazy idiot." You know what I mean? And I've got through there good and all that, you know, but I look back at some of the films and I scare myself today.
Those cars, you know, we talk about open cockpit cars, they were really open. You know, you were so exposed in every.
That's quite true. I mean, I can remember where I used to put in my uniform cardboard on the right side on a dirt track, because if I didn't, after the race you had big whelps and blood would be running out of your arm. These boys nowadays, they're all in kind of a cage, you know, even on the dirt cars. They don't even get nothing. And I can remember many times one of my eyes would be closed, you know, not a full face helmet with just a face, but no, they don't know how lucky they got it.
And that was just from what you get hit, the dirt clods.
With the dirt clods, we following somebody else, or like when you was sideways behind somebody and they'd accelerate. I mean, it's just like somebody shooting you with a machine gun almost.
How many times, you talked about, you know, racing hurt and stuff, how many times did you race when you were really beat up, but now that you think back and you go, man, I probably shouldn't have done that?
Well, I had a great life. I come from nothing and been very successful, I feel. And if I was reborn tomorrow, I'd want to do the same thing. I know what it's like to be on bottom. I know what it's like to be on top. I know what it's like to be back on the bottom. I know like it is to be back on top. I've had a great, happy life. Still married to the same lady. almost 60 years. We got 4 wonderful kids. So what else can you ask for in life? Life's very short. So life's been very good to A.J. Foyt.
That is just a taste of our conversation with A.J. We'll have more with Foyt in 2 weeks on our next episode of Speed Sport Magazine. You're not going to want to miss that. Now up next, we will stick with our Memorial Day traditions theme as we go to Oswego Speedway in upstate New York to remember another legend. It's the Richie Evans Memorial, this week's featured highlight when we come back. Since 1934, National Speed Sport News has been America's motorsports authority. Every month, Speed Sport Magazine comes alive with stunning photography, insightful commentary, and in-depth features. You will get the full story with Speed Sport Magazine. To start your home delivery of America's motorsports authority, log on to nationalspeedsportnews.com and hit the big yellow subscribe button. Be the fan in the know. Just go to nationalspeedsportnews.com and click subscribe.